So our main speaker today is Ty Frazier. Ty is an entrepreneur, lighting designer, software developer, high school teacher, and enjoys hosting karaoke. We need to get you to host a karaoke night for us, Ty. In 2017, he launched a local AV stage labor company, Backstage Action, which gave many technicians the opportunity to learn and grow in their field of expertise while earning a livable income to support their families. Backstage Action has been accredited by the Better Business Bureau, a member of the National Association for Catering and Events, and the Houston LGBT Chamber of Commerce. Ty has worked in entertainment production since he was 15 years old. Over the years, he's been part of many productions with performers and guests such as President George Bush Sr., Ashanti, Ja Rule, Enrique Iglesias, Pitbull, and the Queen herself, Beyonce. He has previously worked on productions including the Super Bowl, Free Press Summerfest, Houston Zoo Fest, and with the Beast, Freedom Over Texas, and the Republican presidential debate. In addition to entertainment production, he also operates a software development company, Tytec LLC. So please welcome to the screen, Ty Frazier.
Hi. Hi. I'm Ty. I designed Polar Express. I think that's where we should kind of start. To start with a little bit of my background, I started in entertainment production when I was 15 years old, and I went to U of H. I got a BFA in theater. I have worked with LD Systems, which is a company that does the rodeo, and a lot of other large shows in our region. I've done about 200 theater productions. I've worked with a number of big events in town, including the Republican national debate that came in, the Super Bowl, anything else probably around. But we recently did Polar Express last fall, which was a cool experience. We designed a live train experience for you to actually live out the Polar Express. And so we can start with that. I think we can share my screen here. So what I want to do is start with just showing you some images of what we did. This is on the platform, and so I designed the lights part of this, and the fog and all that experience, the blue and all the snowflakes that you see here. This is actually when you enter the train, and so this is the screen will load. This is the front as you come in. I don't know if anybody went. If y'all had any experience, I hope you did. We did about 33,000 tickets for this. For the first year of Polar Express to happen in our region, it was like a phenomenal record for the Polar Express team across the nation. This was the newest one last year. There's 6 or 9 of them across the nation. This one exceeded everybody's expectations for all of that, so it was really awesome to be a part of it. But these are all some pictures of that. This is the side of the building. We would hang all of these lights off the side here and do all this blue with all the snowflakes. So as you entered, this is what this is. No, it's not loading. There it goes. So as you came in, our job was to create the experience of living inside of that train station and creating that Polar Express, getting on that train, even being in Galveston, Texas, with the beach about a block away. So we tried to make everything as real for those kids as we could, that they could really experience that magic and the excitement of not just necessarily riding a train, but also like seeing Santa and being on that experience and that ride and going to the North Pole. The train actually left the train station. We would go a mile out and then came back on another platform. And when they came back on that platform, they would pass the North Pole, and Santa would be on the train, meet the kids, and they would perform the story of the entire Polar Express movie on the train while you were on it. So it was cool to watch the kids live out that experience. This was in the train depot. And so we would start with them reading the book, the whole entire Polar Express book. And so they would sit on the floor here, And then once the book was over, the conductor from the train, we would blare the train horn, the conductor would come in, and they would start a live experience into the book and the movie, essentially. This is the kind of the courtyards that we had to create all the lighting to really immerse you into the experience. So we had all the Christmas lights around all the palm trees here, and we did this building is part of the hospital, and so we lit that whole building up blue, and then projected the Believe ticket. So as you actually parked and came into the building, you saw the Believe ticket, and you were already into that experience. It's a 5-acre property, so it took a lot of lights, and to immerse you the entire time was a lot of work on our part. But we tried to do that from the time you parked all the way to the time you got on the train to the time you left, in every aspect. And so this was Polar Express. When you were on the train, there were actors that lived out the entire book, or performed the entire movie or parts of, and we would change the lights throughout the entire train. There were 6 train cars, and we did all wireless technology to change all of those lights. That was the way that the actors knew when to cue. We did them in an A and B train car set. So all 6 cars, 3 of them were doing one thing while the other 3 were doing another, and then they would switch. And that's how we got to do the whole experience for everybody at the same time, if that makes sense. And so we used all LED technology to keep the temperature down, because the train is very hot, just inside the nature of being in a train. And so we would put all of our LED lights up in the top of the luggage racks there, and project them across, and then wirelessly control them. On the 6 train cars, there were about 120, I think, wireless lights there, that filled up the entire length of the 6 cars. And then, yeah, so they would do that. Let's see what this is. So this is an example of where the conductor here is the lights here are blue here, and so he's doing his job, and then the hobo here during his scene is doing theirs, and then this next scene here, where either you're entering a train or whatever, we would change the lights to match what we needed to do there. So Polar Express, though, as a whole, we designed as an experience to immerse anybody that was really wanting to experience the whole thing. People were showing up in pajamas, and kids were so excited to just be on a train and get the bell and do the thing. It was really neat to watch people enjoy what we created. And so that's part of what I do in any setting that we do. Part of this part of my job. And what I love to do is to create a world that people get to experience and live in, and forget what they've got going on in their life, but live something else, and just let go and relax, or learn something, or feel good, or whatever that story that we're telling is. This is Oedipus, that I did at Sam Houston a long time ago, but it was just a really cool show that I liked doing. What I do a lot, instead of just Polar Express or theater, we do a lot of events, a lot of galas. I've done $1 million galas at the Houston Zoo and these hospitals, and raising money for foundations that really do really good in our world. But we produce these kind of events. This is at Rice for their centennial event, I believe, with George Bush. The whole Bush family was actually at this event. But it's this similar. We do these events and design them and overlay them in what space we can to make the crowd enjoy that experience. So we do that. With that, this is an event I did last December. This was a Christmas party for a corporate event, and so we did all the Christmas strand lights across the ceiling there, and then there's a stage behind us in this one. But depending on the event and what we're doing, this is a temporary structure that is actually in somebody's backyard. It's a little bit extravagant, but it is it's what we do to help produce these events. And so we come in and temporarily install all the lighting, all the audio, all the video. The tent structure itself is all temporary, and we do this. We'll put this entire tent together in about 2 days, produce the event, and take it down the next day. So depending on exactly what the needs of the event are, we do this pretty fast. It's pretty cool when we produce the whole thing, how fast it happens, and what we make of it. To do that, we use a lot of CAD work, architectural design drawings. This is actually Wortham downtown that I 3D rendered a long time ago. And we use this to pitch a bid to the city about building a temporary structure in here. But we go in and 3D model everything to be able to make sure that we have enough planning ahead of actually being in those spaces. So with Polar Express, how many lights do we need? How much power do we need? How much cable do I need? What are the distances, the math behind what we're looking at? And so we do all that with CAD. So there's a lot of planning that goes in to most every event that we do. We're already starting to plan Polar Express for this year. It doesn't happen until November. And we're already talking about what the world looks like today and how we're going to make that happen. And with all that planning, there's a lot that goes into these events, even if they're just one-day events that are not quite as long-term as Polar. But we do a lot of planning in this aspect. We have plots that we use here that are like 2D plots that tell us what to plug in, where to plug in, how. That's all pre-planned way before we actually get into what we're doing. And so we do most of our work here, planning it and then executing it the day of, or installing it at that time. This is an old plot that's not really good scene. But yeah, so with all of that, the technology that we have is ever changing, which is great. It gets very expensive. But this is an original 1960s dimmer control. So the red and yellow at the top here are all like breakers that we would be able to control at that time and assign channels to circuits. And then this is an old school control console that I was actually very fortunate to grow up with. So it taught me kind of an old school archaic method of how we do what we do. Nowadays, everything that we really do is all very electronic. We use what's called DMX, and it is a control cable that tells all the fixtures, all the lights that we have, what we want them to do. And so everything happens in that fashion. There are a number of consoles that are out there, and that's actually what I'm most trained in, is how to operate these consoles. This is like the top of the line series here. It's called a Grand MA. This is the console that ran George Strait's concert the last time he performed at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, or the last day after. And so, yeah. But this is how we control everything that's happening in that venue, from all the moving lights and what's going on. So depending on what we need and how much control we need, we choose that console based on that idea there. This console here obviously doesn't have nearly as much going on as this console does. And so depending on what we need, we make those decisions ahead of time and make sure that we have what we need there. This console here, the Grand MA, originally market valued, when you buy this console, is about $80,000. What we do is, or the equipment that we have is rather expensive. To get one moving light can be anywhere between $3,000 and up dollars just for one. And most of our shows, you're looking at 20 plus lights minimum. So just the value of what we're doing is a lot, which is why For the most part, our events are really temporary. We go in, we rent the equipment, we do a one-day deal, and then we come in and out. In addition to just designing events and doing that part and running our production company, I also teach high school. I love to watch my kids learn. This is the show that we did this year. It's called Crazy for You. And so I design all the sets and my kids actually build them. And this year we won the Tommy Tune Award for Best Technical Execution. So I'm really proud of my kids for that. I've taught there for about 7 years. It's in the Spring Branch area. But it's neat to watch that growth and that responsibility come out of this generation that really grew up on an iPad at some point. And so this is our set as we were building it, and it was just neat to watch it all come together. And this is our kids building it. I taught all of them how to weld this year. So we have an entire welding class in addition to what's our wood shop and everything else that we do. And so it's neat to have that aspect in my life as well. All of the gear that we use, these are Mac 2000 instruments. These are the instruments that are used at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. And we were teching through them to fix them and clean them and make sure that all that dust that's on the dirt, on the floor of HLSR comes out of them. And so this is how mechanical, though, everything is. It's a computer at the end of the day. And so I just think it's a cool picture. This is Free Press Summerfest 5 years ago. So we built this structure in Eleanor Tinsley Park. And this was the stage. This was the main stage that I worked on. The process, once we get into the venue, so we do all the pre-planning and all the CAD work and all of the design phase, and then when we get into it, there's also a process here that we implement of how to unload the truck, how to get it on stage, where things go, how that works, and that's what I train my guys to do, help follow that process to be safe and to not get hurt. Our gear's heavy, it's expensive, it's technical, and if something happens to it during the show, how do we fix that and how do we prevent those things from happening? And so that's what we're really preventing in our training, in our education, and why we need an educated crew to be with us. It's not as easy as just like taking this and putting it together. You got to really know what you're looking at. Once we get it all unloaded and actually on the deck here, we start flying everything. All of this is flown with chain motors. There's a lot of math that goes into what we do, how much things are weighing, how much a point weighs, how many chain motors do you need to be able to balance all of this, how much power are you talking about, how many generators, there's a lot of math in what we do too. And so once we get it all in, the riggers are the ones who are making sure that it's safe and going up. I don't know if you've ever, please don't, you can Google stage failures, and it's insane the things that happen in the world. And we try to prevent that as much as we can at any time. One of the biggest examples of the safety that we deal with are things like the stage that was blown over in Illinois a few years ago, and how to prevent those things, catastrophic events, but staying as safe as we can, and the math behind how to do so. Once we get that stuff in the air here, we start building the stage deck and getting all of the other lights that we need here, and then we complete the whole stage. This was Calvin Harris and Bass Nectar, maybe, or Skrillex. But yeah, so we do this here. This is how many people are here. This is kind of a snapshot of how many people really are at things that we do. Maybe this will play. But this is that stage that night. This exact same stage here in live action. all the lights going. So that's that. This was the sandcastle that they built. They had the sandcastle team that won the sandcastle competition in Galveston come out and build this sandcastle, and we lit it for the 4th of July. And so Freedom Over Texas in Eleanor Tinsley Park, but we did that. We install all of this in a couple of days and make all this happen pretty fast. But yeah. And it's Polar Express. So tickets for Polar Express are going to go on sale September 1st. It's definitely like a super kid-friendly thing. Lots of families, and it's a lot of fun out there. So, yeah. And this year we're already talking about how to handle the world we're living in right now with coronavirus and all of that that's going on, social distancing and that entire pandemic. Our industry is completely just scrapped right now. Tours have canceled until February, I think, at this point. So it's interesting for us to be able to go back to doing live events and how we're going to be able to do that and what that's going to entail, and that's something that we're definitely working out. Yeah. In addition to doing all of this, I also have a software company, and I build software, which is where this ties in. I built a website called HoustonTheaterScene.com, and we partnered with the Houston Theater Alliance, and it was another way that I could work in my abilities to help our production world, our actors, and the people that are involved. And so HoustonTheaterScene.com is something you can go register for, and we do a weekly email blast of shows that are going on in town and what's going on in the 109 theaters that we actually have in Houston. So have that. Yeah. Sorry, thought this was going to take me longer, but I talked kind of fast. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I need questions.
We'll definitely have some questions for you.
Good.
So what we're actually going to do is in a couple minutes, we're going to do a breakout, go into breakout rooms. That way people can kind of talk and generate some questions and comments about everything that you do. It looks really awesome.
Fun.
And then we'll come back and we'll do the Q&A. Welcome back, everybody. All right, we should be good to go on Facebook Live. I hope everyone had some great discussions. Hopefully everyone had some great discussions. We're going to open it up to anyone with questions or anyone who wants to mention an idea that came up in your discussion group. As always, try to keep your questions or comments brief so we can get to as many people as possible. If we don't get to you, my apologies, but we do try to get to everyone. We know everyone is currently muted, so if you have a question or comment, raise your hand and we can unmute you, and that you might have the ability to unmute yourself as well. So before we get to verbal questions, we did have a written question from Roger for Ty. As mass gatherings seem to be the blast from the past, how has the virus changed your business? And how do you see yourself adapting to the future where people may be reluctant to join big crowds, to enjoy concerts and big events in general?
Yeah, so that's something that we're still very much talking about in all the realms that I am involved with. The world has changed very quickly on us, on everybody. But the reality is, I don't think there's an answer right this second about how we're going to handle this. I know that just in the very short term, that our industry is just absolutely decimated. I mean, I have friends who are recording artists that have canceled shows through the end of the year which means not only are the artists out of work, but now all the technicians are out of work, all the venues are out of work. There's just I think the last number I saw was like 500,000 people that work in our industry that are just immediately out of work when all this shuts down. And going back to that, that's even something we're looking at in our own events moving forward, and how do you do that? But I also think too that it's going to relate back to the same. I mean, are people going to fly on planes, and how close? I mean, there's so many things that the rest of the world we're going to have to deal with this as a world, not so much just in our industry as well. So I think it's still a work in progress at this very moment. I'm hoping it goes back because I want my job back, but we'll see.
Understandable. And I think everyone wants to get back to normal too. So
well, yeah, and I think that what we do though, I think that theater and concerts and all of that, I think that it's really important to the world in general. I mean, you can go back in our history as a society forever. We've been doing this for centuries. Meeting in Greek colosseums and doing this forever and ever and ever. I mean, it's part of our world. So I think that it'll figure itself out somewhere.
Okay. Does anyone have a question? Comment?
I've explained everything. I love it.
Ted. All right.
Yeah, I was just wondering, have you done any rock and roll performances?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we did. This is always a weird, well, I don't know. Rock and roll people. I've done like some Kiss impersonators. I did John Bon Jovi once. We did like a private concert with him here in town. He came and did it was like 100 people. It was like a fundraiser that we did. It was really neat. Hard rock shows. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we kind of end up working with a bunch of people just off and on randomly. I've done Rascal Flatts. We've done, I don't know. I was on tour with Enrique and Pitbull for a little bit there. Yeah.
And you did that.
Though different world. Different gear. Rock and roll concerts, even now when you go to a concert that's a rock and roll show, they use like the 1980s lighting, which is so different than technology today. Everything in concerts is LED walls and video and all of that. But the rock show, those rockers stick to that old car can heat. But yeah, they're a different breed. It's cool. So if you've been to the Houston Zoo does what's called Feast with the Beast, and they do an event every year where they bring in like 100 restaurants in town, and they put on a rock show, they put on a concert, but the guy that books them always books like these old school bands that are like old school rock bands because that's what he's into, and so we always end up putting on these cool rock shows at the zoo. And so that's always been fun. I did, I'd have to think about who they were. I know like the B-52s have been out there. You have to go and look up who all they are, but it's always a cool thing, but we've done that a few times. It's fun.
See a couple more questions. Bob, you had a question.
Yeah, Ty, could you talk a little bit about how lighting fits in with the electrician side of things, whether it's a sub-part of it or it's like there's a dividing line there, and maybe also a little bit about how much of the total budget is involved with lighting on a typical venue?
Yeah. So lighting, as far as what I'm concerned, like where we are in entertainment, what we do is very temporary. So being an electrician, we have all the knowledge and all of the ability. But nobody in my world is like a certified electrician by any means. But as far as the cables that we're using, we actually have sets of cables that are the same as power lines. that run the generators, that run from the generators to the stage, and then we break out that power and deal with the breakdown and how that works. The math of being an electrician, as far as breakers and how many amps and how much voltage and how far you can run cables. Polar Express is a good example of that. We had a generator that was on site, but we had to run cables 700, 800 feet to the other side of the property. And how much voltage drop do you get out of that, and how much, being the electrician side, you have to have all that knowledge of when it gets to your gear, do you have enough to power it up, and also do you have enough to not fry your motors out. And yes, it might turn on for 20 minutes, but how does that mathematically come out in electricity? And then your second question, sorry.
How much of the budget is yours?
So depending on the show, for the most part, a normal show's budget, lighting is actually on the higher side of that in comparison to video and audio and lighting are three main aspects of things. Lighting is usually one of the more expensive sides. So video and audio usually split probably about, I would say somewhere, they split their half and then we take the other half of the budget. It depends though too, where you're at and what the show calls for as well. Like a rock show, like we were talking about, like they want the bass and the sound and the audio, so they'll put more of their money into audio. And like new concerts today want video panels and video walls, and that's where they'll throw their money at a better video wall rather than having better lighting. It just depends. It really just depends on the show. But yeah, for the most part, lighting's expensive. So, and that's the hardest thing. That's one of the hardest things that I have to do in what I do, is trying to tell the client, like, I know it's expensive, but it's going to be better. I'm trying to make that sale, not because you want to sell it, but because it's better for the production. And sometimes they understand and sometimes they don't. Sometimes you can't ever explain it ever again. We did we've done weddings and things like that where you tell the client again and again and again, it's not physically possible. The math doesn't work. You can't do what you're trying to do. And no matter what, they tell you yes, 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 and you try and make them happy, but at the end of the day, you know, it is what it is. And so it's a compromise sometimes in our world, working with their budget and figuring out what we can do, and whether or not it's even a reality. Bridezillas are fun. That's the, yeah.
All right. All right. I see a couple more questions, but we're starting to kind of run out of time. Would you be willing to stick around after to kind of just have a more informal conversation and answer some questions? Awesome. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, so right now we're going to have one final song from Leah Gail Nelson. Before we get to that, we are going to post the donate in the chat window, both here and on Facebook, if you can. While we're no longer meeting in physical space, we're still paying the musicians and have some fixed expenses. We still have big plans for the future. Some of these plans include a new website that our board members are going to get a sneak peek at later today. And at our board meeting on Thursday, we also voted to sponsor a scholarship for Secular Student Alliance college students. So if you like what we're doing and you're able, please consider donating.